Thank you for participating in Morehead at Home Skywatching, hosted by Morehead Planetarium and Science Center. My name is Amy Sayle. I'm an educator at Morehead. We are a unit of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, located on campus. We also work throughout the state through a number of outreach initiatives like our mobile lab vans, summer camp programs, and the annual North Carolina Science Festival. Our mission is to help people better understand science, technology, and health, and we do this through engaging learning opportunities like this live virtual event. We're happy to have you here today for our program, Giant Leaps. And my colleague, Nick, will get us started.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Morehead at Home Skywatching. We're really excited you're here with us today because we're talking about the past, present, and future of human spaceflight. So that means we're going to touch on a lot of things today. So we are going to go ahead and get into it for you, but just a couple of housekeeping items first. If you have questions throughout the program, we want to hear them. The best way to get them to us is to use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. That way you can type in a question and we will take some time at the end to answer those. Also, we will be dropping some links into the chat for you for the different softwares that we're using today and some cool websites to talk about the moon and Mars. So feel free to use those links. You might not want to open them all at once right in the middle of the session, but maybe afterwards you can follow those and do a little bit of exploration on your own. But first, we're going to use something that might be familiar to some of you. It's a program called Stellarium. It's how we skywatch in this world of flat screens instead of our big round planetarium. So that means I'm going to share my screen for you so you can see what's going on. And we're going to take a look up at our sky. And it's going to start with a daytime sky. So you will see things change. And maybe we notice a couple of things in the sky already, Amy. Everybody else is probably looking around. If it is your first time here, it might look kind of funny to you, but the red letters tell us our cardinal directions. That helps us kind of figure out where we're pointing. Our ground is covered in grass right here, and then we have a nice blue sky. So imagine that the top of the sky or the zenith is somewhere around here on your screen. So everything's just warped a little bit from what your usual view would be outside.
All right, so we're going to be talking about past, present, and future travel related to the moon and Mars. And I do see one really bright object. I see the sun. And Stellarium gives me a hint of where the moon is, but in reality, you will not see this moon in the daytime sky because the side facing us is almost completely dark. And Nick has zoomed in for us, and you can see there's a tiny crescent towards the upper right. That's the side of the moon that's facing in the direction of the sun. That's why it looks a little bit illuminated, a little bit lit up there, because that's the direction that the sun is. But Nick, I was just outside taking a short walk, and you definitely will not see this moon in the sky. If you want to see it, you might have a shot at seeing it tonight right after sunset. I wonder, could we do a little time travel?
Sure, that is the benefit of Stellarium, is we're not stuck here at about 10 o'clock in the morning. We can move time forward. And that you can maybe see the clock speeding up down here. That's one indication that time is moving forward. But you also probably notice it looks a lot like the sun is moving through the sky. But remember, in all of this, really, our Earth is turning. We're rotating or spinning around on our axis. And as we rotate, you can imagine where we are. For us, at least, we're here in North Carolina. North Carolina is kind of spinning away from facing the sun in this view. So eventually the sun dips beneath the horizon, kind of behind that tree over there. And we start to get a look at a nice dark sky. This is about 9:30 p.m. tonight. Okay, so you might have noticed a couple of labels pop up as we moved here into the nighttime sky. Stellarium labels bright stars or the brightest stars. It also shows us brighter stars as kind of like larger and brighter on the screen. So this is pretty realistic for what you might see on a clear night out near your house. But I bet your eyes are drawn to the planets that are labeled. We do have two planets in the southeastern sky tonight. Jupiter and Saturn. Now, I think we could maybe even get a closer look at those another time. We're going to focus on some other resources and that moon. Tonight's just not a great night to see the moon in the sky, but we are at a kind of special date. We're celebrating a kind of special anniversary. So we figured we could still give you some cool moon content. So I'm actually going to switch us over. But I do, maybe want you to try to find these planets in the early evening. Before we switch over, I'll give you one more look at something, because if you're a night owl, you do have a chance to see other planets and maybe more relevant planets to this discussion once it gets a little bit later. So we are seriously staying up past bedtime. It's about 2 a.m. now.
Ah, right around midnight, I saw Mars rise.
Yeah, so it gets pretty high in the sky, the later it gets. And
if you're not a midnight person, but maybe you're a 5 a.m. person, Mars will just get higher and higher. And so if you get up before the sun rises, you could not only see Mars, you can actually see Venus pop up. And then Mercury will pop up right as it's starting to get light as well. But we're going to be focusing on the moon and Mars today.
So since the moon's not in the sky right now, we figured we would show you one of our very favorite websites. The website, we'll put it in the chat for you so you can explore yourself. It's moon.nasa.gov. And I'm just going to switch my screen over so that we can check it out.
And we're going to have a poll question for you before we take a little tour of this site. And so the question is, have humans been to the moon? Have we already been to the moon? And your answer choices are yes, no, or maybe you're not sure. So give us your best ideas on that. And then we'll see what you all think. And if you look closely at the webpage, you might see a little bit of a hint to the answer. If you check out the left side of the webpage, moon.nasa.gov is trying to tell you the answer to that question. Okay, all right. Yes, you all got it.
Okay,
yes, humans have been to the moon. In fact, we trained some of those humans at Morehead Planetarium about celestial navigation, essentially. So, Nick, what do you think? I think we should show them the first place that humans set foot on the moon, the Apollo 11 mission, which is celebrating an anniversary this week. 51 years ago, July 20th, 1969. First steps taken on the moon. And on the right, we're seeing the boot print. Neil Armstrong, who was the first person to walk on the moon, famously said, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind." And there is a challenge going on right now that you all may be interested in participating in. It ends today, July 21st. So those of you watching live have a chance to enter this particular challenge. The challenge is to think about if you were the next person to set foot on the moon, because NASA does plan to send people back to the moon, the next man and the first woman, what would you say? And so start thinking right now, what would you say? 20 words or fewer. What would you say if you were the first person to set foot on the moon? And what we're gonna do is near the end of this program, we're gonna open up the chat, and Nick and I will be the only ones who see what you type, so the other people won't see it. So think of something original that would be appropriate to tell the world if you were the next person to set foot on the moon. And later in the program, we'll open up the chat and we'll ask you to drop in your words. And then we also just dropped into the chat the link if you would like to actually submit them officially to this contest. You can go to that website. You do have to go today. The contest ends at around midnight Eastern time.
Yeah, we're really excited to hear what you come up with. So this website is a great resource for you to learn about some of this history. Apollo 11 was not the only mission to land on the moon, but it's the one that's we're kind of celebrating the anniversary of right now. This site has so much cool stuff. You can, along with human landing sites, see robotic landing sites and details of the moon's geography. You can find details about who went, what, the temperature. It even tells us our moon phase, which kind of lines up with what we saw in Stellarium. I love looking at all of these tools that help us kind of see the moon in a way we would never usually be able to see it. We could take a big chunk out of it and see that the moon has layers much like our Earth, a core and a mantle and a crust. I love looking at this data. I know Amy likes this too. Maybe some topography of the moon.
Yeah, so you'll see if you're looking at the information on the left side of the screen, it says that this moon map was created by the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. This is a robotic spacecraft that's been orbiting the moon since 2009, making this detailed three-dimensional map of the moon. And one of the interesting things that it's found is someone asked in a previous Morehead at Home session whether there had been more recent impact craters. So you're seeing craters here on the moon where something like basically a rock has hit the moon and created a crater. And the answer is yes, there have been craters created recently. And we know this because the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter can compare pictures that it took earlier in the mission, because it's been there for 11 years, and compare them with pictures it's taken later of the same places and can see that there are new craters. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter also, by making this map and collecting other data, can help us figure out appropriate landing sites for new robotic missions or for humans to return to the moon.
And I think you mentioned that you can even see the countdown of how long the LRO has been orbiting here. And, you can see lots of other types of data. We could probably spend all of our time together today going through this super cool website. I would be remiss if I didn't show you how it shows us the moon phases. It's pretty neat. You can move through day to day and see how more of the moon gets illuminated, as we move through this week. And it even has our accurate date. So all that being said, this site does a really good job of tying together some of the history of how we went to the moon and what we learned there with what we're going to do next. So we wanted to show you one more website because we are going to enter a new phase of space exploration. And part of NASA's plan is a Moon to Mars series of missions. And as Amy mentioned, the next NASA mission is called Artemis.
So we've got a poll question before we totally give away the answer. We've got a poll question for you. So we've already asked you, have humans been to the moon? And you all knew the answer. Yes, humans have been to the moon. Here's a question. Have humans been to Mars? Yes, no, or not sure? I don't know. Nick, I kind of got the impression from that movie, The Martian, that Matt Damon has been to Mars.
Yeah, and I love that movie. I've seen lots of interesting pictures of the surface of Mars.
Yeah.
So that makes this kind of a tricky question.
Yeah. So give us your best guess on that one. Have humans been to Mars already? Yes, no, or not sure? No. Oh, and then I like that. A few people said not sure. Excellent. Always good to admit when you're not sure about something. So no, humans have not been to Mars directly, but we have sent a lot of spacecraft there, robotic spacecraft there. Nick, I think you were going to tell us more about plans to get to Mars.
Yeah, so that is why that's kind of a tricky answer, because we do have a lot of information about Mars, but human beings have never been there. And we're going to talk a little bit about why that might not have happened yet, and what some of the challenges are for getting us there. But another website here that's useful for you if you want to learn about like what NASA's doing with our next moon and Mars missions. We'll put the link to this in the chat for you as well. But it's nasa.gov/specials/Artemis. And this kind of lays out, I love this image of the moon and Mars, maybe not super accurate as far as like what they would look like through your telescope. But this is another great resource for you to learn about what the plans are. I think it's a beautiful website, and it tells us how you're going to get there, what kind of spacecraft, the new SLS launch system, the new Orion module that people are going to travel in, and why we're doing this. I think, some of the cool things about how the mission patches were designed and who's been involved. This is just the start of this mission. The idea is that we're going to try to send humans back to the moon by 2024. No guarantee that that's exactly when it'll happen, but that's the plan. And from there, that should give us some better options and some better technology to help us plan a mission for people to go to Mars. So we kind of see the moon as a stepping stone. We haven't been back since 1972. Things like the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter have given us great information about the moon, but there is a big benefit to having human beings there. The type of science that you can do and the type of testing that you can do for human spaceflight is what helps us go further eventually. So this site, is still new, but at the same time, I think it can give a lot of good information about where we're going. I wish I could tell you for sure the next day that a human being is going to set foot on the moon, but as with most space launches, there's a lot of factors at play. We don't know exactly how it's going to go, but I know we're excited for it.
And Nick, I think you paged down to the very bottom of this site because Nick knows that I really like that image in the bottom right. You can imagine a woman on the moon. So a lot of times people look at the moon and they imagine they see shapes, and you often hear people talk about a man on the moon, but I kind of like this woman on the moon. And again, when NASA sends people to the moon again, the plan is that there will be a woman sent. And this will be the first woman to set foot on the moon. And so the mission Artemis is named after a Greek goddess who is the twin of Apollo. And Artemis is said to be the goddess of the hunt and the goddess of the moon. So it's a really appropriate name for this plan. All right, what else we got, Nick?
So, we talked a little bit about the past. We talked about this current plan, but I'm kind of interested in why it's so hard to get to Mars, because if we've been to the moon before, we know we can go back. It'll take some hard work. We know we can go back, but why haven't we been to Mars? And that gets us to some of the geometry of our solar system. It has to do with the scale of where things are. So we have one more screen we're going to show you here, and we're going to use a program called NASA's Eyes on the Solar System. And that's going to give us a look at our solar system from the outside. So imagine you were lifted off into space and you got a view back towards the sun and the inner planets. This is another really neat tool. It's free to download and use. We'll put the link for you in the chat for you there as well. So you'll have a whole big set of homework to play around with today after this lesson. But this gives us an idea of just why it's so hard to get to Mars. I believe in humanity. I believe that we can do this with some good hard work. But let's look at how far away the moon is from Earth, and then compare that to how far away Mars is. Because I don't know about you, Amy, I can't even see the moon.
I don't even see the moon. So you all look at your screen right now, see if you can even distinguish the moon from the Earth. So let's zoom in until we can can you resolve them yet?
So, the way we're going to have to do this is we might have to zoom all the way in on the Earth to begin with. And, that's not what the Earth looks like. It has to load some
that's NASA thinking about,
very beautiful representation. All the images you see in NASA's eyes come from real images from spacecraft. So I'm kind of moving us around here, both because I think the Earth is really pretty, but I also want to try to find the moon in the background. I can see the moon's orbit line. There's the moon. So here's what I'll do is I'll kind of zoom us away from the Earth, so you get a look at just how far away the moon is. Now you see this orbit line. You're not going to see the line out there in space, but that's the way we track the moon's path around the Earth. It takes about 28 days or a month for the moon to orbit us. But we're kind of thinking about how long it takes us to get to the moon. With those Apollo missions, it took a number of days, 3 or 4 days to get from Earth to the moon, because that distance is 250,000 miles, about 246,000 miles on average. That's a big distance. Maybe you can think about the odometer on your car or something like that. If you're getting up to 246,000 miles, your car's been running for a long time. So it's nothing to laugh at, the Earth to moon distance. It is a challenge to get there. But you probably notice that as we get further away, I'm kind of just zooming us out here, that Earth to moon distance shrinks.
Another way you can think of it is that the moon is so far away that it takes that light that we see from the moon over 1 second to get to Earth. And light travels really fast. So the moon is over 1 light second away. But I don't know, Nick, Mars looks really far away compared to where the moon was.
It sure does. And this is even a really close point in its orbit. You notice that Mars and Earth look to be fairly close together here. That's actually why in next week's Morehead at Home sessions, we're going to be talking a lot about Mars, because now is actually a really great window of time for folks to launch missions to Mars from here on Earth. And you might have even heard the news that the United Arab Emirates launched a spacecraft called Hope that's headed to Mars. And our next spacecraft, robotic spacecraft that's going to go, is called Perseverance. And we're going to talk all about that in future sessions. So right now is actually a good time to get from Earth to Mars, but the length of time is immense compared to getting to the moon. Remember, I said it took a number of days to get to the moon? Amy, how long do you think it might take us to get all the way to Mars?
Well, anybody launching, if we hit our launch window, this spacecraft, NASA spacecraft, is going to launch, no humans, it's a robotic space mission, a new rover called Perseverance. It's slated to launch July 30th, and it will arrive not in July, not in August. It'll still be traveling in September. It'll still travel in October. It'll still be on its way in November, December, New Year's. It'll still be traveling through space. January, Valentine's Day, it'll still be traveling. February 18th, 2021, this spacecraft will reach Mars. So it takes months to get to Mars. And that's just one way. So imagine if you were a human, you presumably might want to come back. So it's a serious time commitment if you're going to become a Martian and then you want to return to Earth.
Absolutely. And, that does not mean that we can't do it, but that's why there are so many steps that need to be taken to get us ready to send humans to Mars. The farthest a human being has ever been is to the moon. So even though we've gotten really good at sending robotic spacecraft farther out into the solar system, that's why this Artemis mission is so important, to help us prepare the technology and to prepare our astronauts for these potential longer trips. So if you are a student, a young person watching right now, the neat thing is these Mars missions with human beings headed there, we're thinking they can happen within about 20 years. So if you are, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old right now, you're going to be perfect astronaut age to go along on these missions to Mars before too long. So it might seem like it's really far away, both in distance and time, but I'm excited for what you're going to do when maybe some of you set foot on Mars. So that leads us to a question for you before we get into asking for your first words and things like that. We're curious, which one would you rather do? If you could go to the moon or Mars, which one would you choose?
Yeah, I don't know. Nick, what do you think? Would you go to Earth's moon? Would you go all the way to Mars, all the way to Mars? And then another option is, I think I'd rather just stay on Earth. So let us know.
I think I'm feeling curious today. So and this is an opinion question. You guys can tell us whatever.
Yeah, there's no right answer. It's all whatever you all think. And I know that some of you are watching with somebody else, so you're all going to have to come to an agreement and decide which one you want to pick.
I think I would start by going to the moon. I've never been to space before, so I think I would want to test it out with a shorter trip before I went to Mars. That's just me. But I am curious.
Let's see. Okay, let's see what people said. Oh, interesting split. Okay, about a third of people said, you know what, I just want to stay on Earth. More than half want to go to Mars. And then there are a few people that, they'd like to go to the moon.
Yeah, and I respect it if you want to stay here on Earth. Earth is pretty perfect. That's really, really nice of y'all to give us your answers there. So we want to take a little time to answer your questions and to get some of your ideas. So I think now's the time.
So we're going to open up the chat for your first words. So there's two things going on. If you have a question for me and Nick, put it into the Q&A. But if you want to share with us your first words that you would say if you went to the moon, put it into the chat and Nick and I will see it. The other participants won't see it, but Nick and I will see it, and we'll try to read a few of those out loud. So we'll give you some time the questions into the Q&A, and then your first words for the moon into the chat.
And we do want to mention one more thing. One of the reasons why we chose to use this topic today in our Morehead at Home session is because we have a YouTube video available all about the moon landing, the Apollo 11 mission. It's called One Giant Leap, and you can find it and watch it for free on our YouTube channel. There's a link there for you as well. I know we gave you like 1,000 links today, but there's so much exciting stuff about the moon and Mars. So along with checking out some of these websites and maybe flying around the universe yourself, we encourage y'all to watch that. It's really neat archival footage of the historic landing. So I really enjoyed watching it. It's pretty short. It's less than 10 minutes long. I think it's probably worth your time. Our 51st anniversary was not as big of a celebration as our 50th anniversary, but we're still pretty excited to connect to that history.
Okay, and Nick, there are lots of great questions. Oh, good, and first words are coming in as well. Let's see. I'm going to read a few of these. Evan, one more step to Alpha Centauri. So that's the nearest star system after the sun. That would be a really long trip, by the way. And then Glenn, one giant step for a woman, one step for womankind. Nice. And y'all keep putting in those first words if you would like. And remember to go to that website, the next Moon Step Challenge site, if you would like to type them in officially. And then you do need to be a K through 12 student to enter that challenge in particular. We got one from Kais. One small step for man, one giant leap for womankind. Oh, Evan thinks 100 years to get to Alpha Centauri B. All right. Nick, there's so many great questions. Do you have one you want to tackle?
I do. I see probably my favorite question is from Lily and Aaliyah here. Asked, how can I become an astronaut? Well, asking the question is the first step. It's a complicated job, but that does not mean you can't do it. I'm gonna guess that you're probably a student right now. That is your first step. Keep studying. You have to make it through school. Really, there are just 3 basic requirements to be able to submit your application to the NASA astronaut program. They only open up the window every once in a while when you can apply, but you have to have a relevant college degree, which can mean a lot of things. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to be an astronaut. There have been educators, chemists, military folks, all sorts of things. So you have to have a relevant college degree. You have to pass the physical test. So you have to be pretty physically fit. So just like you would in PE class or something like that, you have to pass a pretty stringent physical. And you have to have some relevant work experience. So once you get that cool college degree, you can find a job that's maybe some type of science, some type of education, some type of aeronautics or engineering. There's so many options. So I know I'm not giving you a specific path right now, but everybody can do it. One of NASA's goals is to say, there are so many smart people in this country. There are so many people that are dedicated to moving us forward and helping us explore more. So that drive to want to explore, I think that is the first step. So all in all, I could talk about how I want you to be an astronaut forever, but I think study hard and ask good questions, and that's your good first step.
That's a great question. Thank you. We've tossed up another question for you all. It would help us a lot if every single one of you would help us answer this question. How many people are watching this program on your screen? Let us know if it's just you or if it's more people than that. Oh my gosh, there's so many. We probably only have time for like another quick one. I'm looking at, I'm not sure which one to do, Nick. There's a question about which planet is closer to Earth, Venus, and Mars, also by how much. The planet distances range a lot, actually. If you remember the graphic that Nick put up in NASA Eyes, you can actually play around with that. And Nick pointed out that like right now, Earth and Mars are fairly close to each other. They can get as close as, I'm going to round here, but roughly 35 million miles. They can also be a lot more than that if Earth is on one side of its orbit and Mars is on the other side of the sun from us. Same thing can happen with Venus. It's the second planet out from the sun. We're the third. We can kind of be close together, or we can be on opposite sides of the sun from each other. So the distance ranges a whole lot in terms of which one might be closer at the moment. Okay.
Wow, these are great. I actually am just like so happy seeing all of these cool first words coming in. So here's what we'll do. We're going to leave this chat open for a little bit so that y'all can keep giving us your first words, and so that you can maybe copy down the myriad of links that we have in there for you. But our time is up today. So I hope we've given you some good homework and some fun things to explore. We want you to watch that One Giant Leap video. We want you to submit your first words in the next Moon Step Challenge and those images of your footprints. And then we want you to play around with Stellarium and Eyes and all the good stuff that we put in there for you. So I know some of the questions we didn't get to, there are answers, especially on that moon.nasa.gov site about things like moonquakes and stuff like that. So I encourage you to check those out. But we will be back with you on Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. And otherwise, check us out on our social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our YouTube page. But otherwise, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. See you on Thursday.